Welcome to Mrs. Peach Thrifty Living. I'm so happy you're here today. Today is getting warm, but it's beautiful. On my porch we have shade right now, and you can see a little breeze blowing in the trees and the flowers behind me that have a lot of aphids on them. Oh, so the ones I brought in the house I rinsed off good, and that seemed to help the ones there, and they were buds and they're blooming out. That was nice. Okay, I just wanted to let you know that I decided, I'm not driving my car till I get it checked out on Monday, and so I stayed home all day. I piddled around the house. I put a new tablecloth on my table. For some reason I let Easter go by and did not decorate for Easter at all. And I probably have more decorations for Easter than most of the holidays besides Christmas. I don't know how I did that, but I just let it slide by. So I changed my tablecloth, and it's kind of more springy, I guess you'd say. Well, it's pushing summer. Oh well, whatever it is, it is. It's pretty, I think. Our neighbors are just getting home from work, some of them, so I had to stop for a minute, pulled into their driveway. Okay, I have two more of the president's wives, or first ladies here. They're not all wives. We've found that out along the way. And this is the last two in this book. I started midstream. I've got the last two here. This book was given to me by Carol at Crinkle Path. She's an awesome creator. You can go over and check and see what she posts. I am on this beautiful lady. And who is she? Edith Kermit Caro Roosevelt. She served for the first president during the term of her husband, Theodore Roosevelt. He was the 26th president of the United States. Edith Caro, born in Connecticut, grew up in the same privileged circle in New York as Theodore Roosevelt. They became sweethearts, but grew apart after Roosevelt went away to Harvard. Roosevelt married Alice Hathaway in 1880. Her sudden death 4 years later left him a desolate widower with an infant daughter, Alice. Theodore and Edith renewed their old romance and were married in 1886. They were an unlikely couple. She was aloof and a bit austere, while he was boyish and impetuous. But Edith liked her husband's exuberance, and Theodore appreciated her restraint. Edith and Theodore had 5 children together. Edith skillfully managed their large household as they moved from place to place. I don't know, what do you think of my hair blowing? Advancement of Theodore's political career. Theodore Roosevelt became William McKinley's vice president in 1901 and suddenly found himself president when McKinley was assassinated a few months later. The Roosevelt's White House was boisterous. There were always children and animals underfoot, including dogs, cats, guinea pigs, snakes, lizards, and rats. Oh my goodness. Newspapers gleefully reported the antics of the Roosevelt children and their pets. But while their families scrambled around her, Edith remained calm. She presided over the White House parties and state dinners with a confidence and a dignity. Theodore's daughter, by his first wife, lived with him and was married at the White House in 1906. Edith dealt swiftly with each problem she encountered. In an effort to protect her family from too much publicity, Edith and the children posed for photographs which appeared with little information. These formal photographs preserved their privacy, satisfied public curiosity, and kept the media at bay. In addition, Edith directed White House renovations that would clearly separate the family living quarters from the offices. She held weekly meetings with the cabinet wives and set standards for entertaining. Edith hired caterers to handle White House parties and secretaries to handle all the correspondence. Edith was capable, confident, who took a business-like approach to her duties as First Lady. The changes she instituted in the White House management solved many problems, both for her and her successors, and she brought a new structure to the role of First Lady. The Roosevelts retired in 1909. They both stayed as busy as ever. Theodore Roosevelt died 10 years after his president's term was over, and Edith traveled often, did church and charity work, and kept her ties to the Republican Party. Sadly, 3 of her 4 sons were killed during the widowhood. Quentin died in World War I. Theodore Jr. and Kermit died in World War II. Archie, who lived until 1979, served in both world wars, and she died at the age of 87 in 1948. Okay, now we're on to the 27th president, or First Lady. Here she is. And she is, here it is. It's Helen Huron Taft. She served as First Lady during the term of her husband, William H. Taft, the 27th President of the United States. So you can go find the 28th and on further down in this series. It goes clear to the Barbara Pierce Bush, the 41st President. So there's been some since. She was born June 2nd in 1861, and I could have did this inside, but it's so pretty out here. 17-year-old Helen Huron visited the White House as a guest of President Hayes, her father's old friend. She was so impressed by the executive mansion that she vowed to marry a man who would become the president. Although the man she eventually married had little taste for politics, Helen got her wish. Helen, who grew up in Cincinnati, was outspoken and unconventional young woman. She organized meetings of young people to discuss intellectual issues. She was a school teacher when she met William Taft, a young lawyer, at a sledding party. They were married 6 years later. William Taft was appointed a judge. He was pleased as the Supreme Court was his ambition, but Helen dreaded the stodgy judicial life. She busied herself with her 3 children, took art classes, joined a book club, and in 1900, William was asked to head the American civil government in the Philippines. Helen could barely wait to go. She loved adventure, and the years in the Philippines were happy ones. Once back in the United States, William Taft got several offers from President Roosevelt. Though this was a position he had always wanted, Helen opposed it. Her husband's success in the Philippines made him a likely presidential candidate, and Helen had no intention of letting the opportunities pass. In 1908, William Taft became president, and Helen moved into the White House as First Lady. Helen plunged happily into her role. She replaced some of the White House staff, rearranged the rooms, and sponsored musical performances on the White House lawn. She arranged for the planting of Washington's famous cherry trees. 2 months of furious activities came to a halt when Helen suffered a severe stroke. She recovered within a year, but never resumed her vigorous pace. Nevertheless, her parties were considered to be among the most brilliant ever held in the White House. After his term ended, William Taft had the opportunity to fulfill his fondest wish. He was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Helen, glad to be out of the public glare, found that the judicial life now suited her. She stayed in Washington after her husband died in 1930, continuing her interest in arts until her death in 1943, and she died of natural causes. That was very interesting. Isn't it funny, the difference in all of the different ones, their ambitions, the way they did the White House, and one did this and one did that. I just found this series very interesting. And this concludes, unless I come across something I don't know, this concludes the Presidents and the First Lady series. And I plan to get started on my states. I barely started it, and then I wanted to finish this before I really jumped into something else. But I'm looking forward to the states series that's talking a little bit about each state. And I know there's people that from all over, and I always love hearing from you, and I look forward to talking to you about where you're from. I love to hear from you, if you don't mind. And if you would, and you haven't yet, please subscribe. And if you have, be sure and push that like button and share it if you know somebody that would like this kind of information. I don't share everything. Once in a while I come across something and I think, oh, that person would like this. I pray God blesses you today. And I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And don't forget, Jesus loves you.